Welcome back to another episode of the Be Who You Came to Be podcast. I'm your host, Tara Renze, flying solo on the podcast today, talking about who you are and who you came to be. You know, one of the things that I've shared over and over and over, and I'm going to continue to share over and over and over, was the history of the Be Who You Came to Be message, which was sent as a note to my newborn son by my 87-year-old grandmother. Her life's advice to him was be who you came to be. And so as a mom, it gave me a lot of guiding light on how to parent. There's a lot of parenting handbooks out there, but when it comes down to you and figuring out specifically how to do it, we figure it out as we go along. And every kid is different. You cannot parent two children the same. And most likely you don't want to parent your kids the way you were parented. There's a lot of great things that we learn from our parents and then ways that we want to do things differently. But when we get to the heart of the message, be who you came to be, that was her advice for him. And as a mother, that was my mission, was to help this child be who he came to be. And I think that so many times in life, whether we're raising kids or we're thinking about our own life and what we want, it's easy to get distracted from this mission of being who we came to be and helping someone else be who they came to be. As a parent, first off, I think we get caught up in the trap of wanting our kids to be who we want them to be. We see the parents. I've seen this happen so many times where, both the parents were sports parents and they get a kid who loves the trombone and wants to be in the band and they struggle with it. They think like, is something wrong with this kid? Like, why don't we have the same passions and purpose? And everything that they love, which is going to sporting events and all this, they don't get to experience that with their kid. And I think that can be challenging and hard. And I don't think it makes you a wrong parent to want your kid to have the same interests that you do, right? There's nothing more fun than sharing our interests with someone that we love. I remember distinctly when the boys were little, my husband and I have always been huge NCAA basketball fans, Rock Chuck Jayhawk. I know we've had better years than we've had this year, but the NCAA tournament is, I believe, like the best sporting event in the history of sporting events. It's just so fun. Anyone can win. It's an underdog's game. And it's just such an incredible tournament to watch. And obviously, if you have a team in it, to be a fan of. And I remember when the boys were super young, like Scott was trying to get them to fill out brackets and they had zero interest. Now, granted, I think they were like 5. And I had to remind him, I'm like, babe, like they don't have the attention span to watch basketball. Like, it doesn't mean they're not going to be into it. One year he even like figured out all the college mascots and got them to pick their teams based on the college mascots for the teams. And he had some fun with it. But getting him to watch a basketball game was like, it would be like telling a kid to be patriotic. They're like, I have no idea what the hell that means. They watch a little of the game, but they're not going to be, they're not fans yet, right? And you'll be glad to know, and Scott was, very excited that both of our boys loved to watch basketball. Ben, obviously, more than Jack, as Ben is our baller. He's our basketball player. And, but they both enjoy the NCAA tournament and they grew into that. I will say that both Scott and I actually were not athletes. So we love that our children are athletes. It's so fun for us to have these skills that we didn't have. I joke all the time, like, oh, Ben learned, everything he knows about basketball from me because I played in 8th grade. And I was a hustler. I mean, I was tough out there under the, in the paint, getting the rebounds. Just side note, I wasn't that good at basketball. I was good for, a small town basketball player. But what Scott and I we loved music. We were both musicians. We are both musicians. And so I think that, when we realized our kids weren't into music and weren't going to be musicians, like that was, it was kind of hard for us. Like I still would love it if one of my boys would pick up the guitar. I tell him all the time, I'm like, you want the trifecta. Like you're a handsome dude, you're athletic. And if you can play the guitar, like, boom, you got it going on. They've piddled with the guitar, but they haven't fully taken, control of the guitar. And why I'm bringing this up is because we want our children to share some of the same passions and purpose that we have. But we have to remind ourselves that they didn't come to be who we want them to be. And you see kids who get really wrapped up in wanting to be who their parents want them to be or not wanting to disappoint their parents, which again, I think it's a good thing to want to make your parents proud, to want to, do well in life so that they are proud. But what's more important is to make yourself proud and to be the best version of you. And if you have a wonderful parent, like that's going to be enough. That's going to be enough. And if you're listening to this and maybe you felt like you were never enough for your parents, it's not about you not being enough in life. It's not. It's about them. And that's something that they need to work through and that they need to work on. But it's a hard subject because we want our kids to like the same stuff as us, and we like to push them in certain directions. And, for me as a mom, I've really made this my guiding light of my entire mission in life is to help my kids become the best version of them. Whether they share my passions or not, I want them to do what they love to the best of their ability. And I think so many times in life, we have these goals and aspirations for ourselves, especially when we're younger. You ask kids like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And they state their passions and purpose. Like when my boys were really little, they wanted to be truck drivers. Like they were super into trucks. Like they thought it would be awesome to drive a street sweeper through the neighborhood and like clean up trash. I mean, that would have been kick ass. Like I'm going to drive bulldozers. Like they want to do that. And then they get into cops and they think, I want to be a cop. And then, then they see doctors and they're like, oh, this would be cool to be a doctor. And they go through all these different iterations of like who they came to be. And my boys are teenagers now, and I ask them like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And for the longest time, when they were really younger, they were like, I want to be a professional athlete. Like I want to play D1 basketball. I want to be in the NBA. I want to be in the MLB. And I have to tell you, my youngest son, Jack, he's a freshman. He still says like, I want to play baseball. And we never want to crush his dreams and be like, well, that's going to be a really hard road. So we were usually like, okay, well, you got to keep showing up. You got to keep putting in the time. You got to keep putting in the practice. And maybe that could happen. And then, we usually say, and maybe you should have a backup plan. Like what would you do if that wasn't your plan, if that plan didn't work out? And I think that's always a good thing to have in life of like, hey, if this doesn't work out, what would it be? But not that it would derail you from following your passions and purpose and being exactly who it is that you want to be. Now, with all of this, we also have to give ourselves permission to change, right? When my boys were little and said they wanted to drive a trash truck, I wasn't like, you're not going to do that. You're not going to drive a trash truck. I was like, that would be so cool. I just let them run with it, knowing that they were going to change their mind and want to do something else. And I think that so many times we feel like we were supposed to have it figured out. We were supposed to know exactly what we wanted to do. We were supposed to go all in and never change our mind. And I feel there's so much pressure on the youth, specifically, these teenage kids, to try to figure out what the hell they want to do when they're 17. What are we asking of them? But they do. They have to go to pick a college. They have to find a career. A lot of times they're going to apply for scholarships based on their interests. And for me personally, I went to college as a theater and voice major. I was so into music. I was a singer. I studied, opera, voice. I have always loved the theater. I was in the high school orchestra and band. I played the flute. And I loved music. And I went on scholarship to the University of Kansas for theater and voice. Like I was doing it. I was in the musicals. I was singing in the choir. I was taking the lessons. I was doing all the things. And I loved it. And then something happened my sophomore year, like towards the middle to the end of my sophomore year, I realized like, I don't really know if I love this anymore. And I don't really know if this is who I came to be. And I didn't have a backup plan. And even if I would have had a backup plan, I just would have said some bullshit to make my parents happy. I'd be like, oh yeah, this is my backup plan if this doesn't work. And, after my sophomore year, I stayed in Lawrence. I continued to take vocal lessons. But it was over that summer, I was like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to pursue this. And so I remember having the hard conversation with my parents of like, hey, I'm going to drop my voice major. And I've been looking. I want to just go into communication studies. I think it's a great thing for me. I've always loved talking. I know if you're one of my old teachers listening, I know I was the kid who like got the box around my desk and had to sit in the corner and got in trouble for talking. I'm not sorry about it. Anyway, so I had to give up my scholarship. And I remember having the conversation with my mom and dad, and they were severely disappointed. I mean, they were like, what? Like, why can't you keep singing and do this? And I just was like, my heart's not in it. And obviously, I have wonderful parents, and they supported me, and they were like, okay, well, we'll figure this out, and figure out how we're going to pay for college without the scholarship. And we made it work. They were generous, and I ended up taking out a few small loans. And it was the best decision I ever made, because I was honoring this be who you came to be notion before I even had the note, before I had the guidance of that's what we should do. And here's what the note means. It means that you're never going to arrive. You're always going to be a work in progress. You can change. You can change your passions and purpose and what you want to do. And so many times we start going all in on our lives, and then we get to a point where we're like, shit, this isn't fulfilling to me anymore, but I'm already so in. How could I ever change? And it's like, whoa, but how could you not change? Like, you get one life. You get one life. And if you're not loving what you're doing, and it's not who you came to be anymore, then figure it out. Now, I'm not saying quit your job, because I think that a lot of people can have a job that they enjoy and still have passions and purpose in their life that they're not making a living out of. Like, not everyone is going to become a musician because they love music so much that's all they're going to do. I know so many people who are 9-to-5ers and play in a band at night, or still playing, sing in the church choir, or if they love sports, they're still in a rec league, and they coach their kids' little league team. So I think that there's also this confusion of when people are like, do what you love and you'll never work another day in your life. I mean, just so you know, everything that you do is work. And I love what I do. And there's still days where I'm like, what the hell am I doing? Like, what? Maybe I should just, I remember during the pandemic, I was like, maybe I should just go back into sales. Maybe I should sell real estate. And so I think that we get confused because we're sent all of these messages. And I think there's so many ways to find love in our work, even if it's not our true passion. Like, if you could, if you were like, if I could make a living playing music all the time, I would. But would you really? Because that would require you to be on the road all the time and performing. And you think about the sacrifice that musicians have of family and everything else, that we can still have things that we love and that we're passionate about in our lives without making it how we actually, quote unquote, make a living. And there's a great story that I love to share in my keynotes about how leadership is love. And I found this beautiful story about this man who's a janitor, and he's been a janitor at a children's hospital most of his life. And he feels like that is his calling in life. Well, I don't think, his calling was to be a janitor in life, but he says, this janitor job has allowed me to have my calling, which is to brighten people's days, which is to connect with people in times of need. And, he shares that he's working in this children's hospital where emotion and stakes are high. It's sick kids and family members who are under a severe amount of stress. And he gets to go into their rooms and create clean, healthy spaces for them. But he also gets to connect with them. And he's gone out of his way in his lifetime to get to know the kids and to make friendships and to brighten up their day. And he feels like that is the most beautiful gift that he could ever give. And that's when you realize, like, leadership and jobs, they're not about, transactions and titles. It's really about love, which is that second part of the message. Love will guide you in whatever it is that you do. And I think if you can figure out, what it is about your job that you love, then you can shift that perspective to be able to show up as the best version of you. And maybe there's something there where you could align your passions and purpose and, go all in on that, whether it be at work or as your side hustle, as, something that you do in the evenings. And also just to know that you're never going to have it figured out. Scott, my husband, he is, he's very, very smart dude. Okay. He got 2 degrees in college, engineering and business, went to work as an engineer here in Kansas City, got his MBA and decided then that he wanted to be in finance. Like he was like, I actually want to get into the investment world. He went and did this really cool internship. It wasn't an internship. It was like a project where they got to go pitch something to Warren Buffett. And he was like, this was the coolest experience ever. I want to do this. Now, we were in our late 20s at the time. I was working in corporate and I was like, fuck it, like, let's do it. Like, quit your job. He got an internship at an investment company and we had to pay back his MBA, and he'd worked 10 years as an engineer almost, and then decided to do this. And it was scary as hell, but it was the best decision he ever made. And he's been now working on a mutual fund since then. And yeah, it was a huge risk for us, but it was also like, how can you be in a job that you don't love forever? And so I think that, if you're not loving what you're doing right now, maybe figure out a way, if there is something in there that you could love. Maybe sometimes it's just changing your perspective on what it is that you do. And I will say though, if it's something that you truly loathe, like you absolutely freaking hate your job and you hate going to work every day, like that's when maybe you need to either look for something else within the organization or leave the organization. I mean, I had multiple jobs before I really found like a company that I was truly thriving in. And, the other thing about being who you came to be is that you're never going to reach some point in life and arrive and be like, and this is what I'm going to be doing forever. And I even think about, me choosing this path of becoming a keynote speaker and an author. I'm not going to be speaking and writing about the same things for the rest of my life. I mean, there's going to be new versions and new iterations of it. And, I think there'll be things that change for me and how I get work out there and how I get the messages out there. I mean, I think this podcast is one of them. 6 years ago, when I started out on this journey, I would have never said that I was going to do this. I would have been like, I don't think that's for me. And here I am doing it now because I gave myself permission to do it, knowing that like, hey, I'm going to start doing this podcast and I'm not going to make any money doing it at first. It's going to be a huge time commitment when I don't even have the time to do it. But it was something that I was passionate about and wanted to do. And so I was like, I'm going to do it. And so many times we give up on our dreams and we give up on what we want because we think that we should have already been there. We think that we don't have time. We think that we don't have the finances for it, whatever it might be. I mean, you can come up with any damn excuse that you want for why you're not doing what it is that you want to do. Or you could talk yourself into it. You can get mentally fit enough to know that like, why in the hell would I be talking myself out of all these things that I love and not just try it, not just do it? And here's the thing, like the time's going to pass anyway. Like, so you might as well just start chipping away and start figuring out how to get it done. My brother is such an interesting dude. I have two older brothers. One is actually a music educator. He is a music educator in a middle school and high school. And he's like one of the most inspiring, amazing humans I've ever met. His name's Travis, Mr. Johnson. And, he's challenged and embraced all of these kids to go in on their passion for music. And he's made band cool, for these kids and for the school that he's in. It's such a respected program. My other brother, Tanner, he actually works in our family bank. My family has had a community bank for over 125 years in rural Kansas. It's primarily an ag lending bank, small business loans. And Tanner went back to work with my dad and my grandfather. And unfortunately, they're not with us anymore, but he's back there keeping the family legacy alive. And it's so interesting because yes, Tanner is the banker, but he always has something else up his sleeve. It's been everything from like making kombucha, which that's a whole nother story. One time he brought all this kombucha up to my house and it exploded all over our garage, all over our refrigerator. And we just chalked it up to like, oh, it's another Tanner project. He was making sourdough bread for a while. He was growing lettuce and had all these fish, like hydroponic, like vegetable farm. He's had drones. He's had music makers, like all these programs. Now he's into this video. He's making videos and doing all this cool stuff. But he just, he follows his passions. And it's so fun just to see these little sparks ignite into something he's passionate about. And so many times we don't give ourselves that permission when we're adults because we think, why would I do that now? And, I call them butterfly goals. which are these wildly audacious big goals that we have for ourselves that we've completely put on the back burner and we don't do because they seem so wild. And the reason they're called butterfly goals is because a caterpillar was the origin, the origination of the butterfly, right? There's this beautiful saying, the butterfly is beautiful because the caterpillar was brave, but the caterpillar reinvents itself. And it's like, the caterpillar was like, fuck this. I don't want to be this big fat little slug anymore. Like, I want to be the beautiful butterfly. And it did it. It like ate, it was like, I'm going to eat a bunch of food and I'm going to wrap myself up in a chrysalis. I'm going to completely deconstruct myself. I'm going to reinvent myself. And then I'm going to emerge and be like, I'll show you. It's such a cool story when you think about it. And, I was talking to my son about it because someone the other day was like, I mean, I like the butterfly goals, but I got to tell you, that's pretty feminine. It's kind of girly. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm a girl. I like girly things, but I get what you're saying. So I was talking to my son, Jack, about it, and we came up with major league goals. And I actually really like this because it goes back to what I was talking about when we first started out. As kids, we have all these big ideas and ambitions, and suddenly we get scared because the world says that's going to be hard. I don't think you got what it takes. You're not cut out for that. I don't think you can do that. Man, that's going to be a really long haul for you. It was like when I started speaking and I was told, you want to be a keynote speaker? Like, this is a great message, but that's going to be really hard for you to make a living. Like, I mean, you're not a Fortune 500 executive. You've never, you're not a professional athlete, Nobel Peace Prize winner. You haven't traveled the world. You haven't you weren't in the US military. Like, I mean, literally everything from you haven't lived through a shark attack or something tragic. You're going to have a hard time. And I was so convinced, and this message, Be Who You Came to Be, was such a conviction of mine. I had seen firsthand. I was so passionate about it that I knew I had to do it. And that was able to get me there. But so many people would have just thrown in the towel and would have been like, no, I'm not going to do that. And I want you to listen to this message and think about something that you always wanted to do, someone that you always wanted to become, something that you always wanted to be. And I want you to go do it. I want you to start figuring out how to do it if you're still passionate about it. Because maybe it was something that you no longer really want to do because you're not passionate about it anymore. But what is something that you are passionate about, but you've been afraid to do because you thought your time was up or the gig was up or there was, no chance that you could be able to do that. And I want you to really think about that. And this week, I want you to go all in on that. I want you to start figuring out how to do it because you do get one life. Life's too short. And who you came to be is not who you are today. Like, there is so much more out there for you to achieve and to do. And you have to believe in yourself beyond reason, because I'm here to tell you right now, the world isn't always going to believe in you. You got to find your raving fans. You got to find those people who believe in you beyond reason, who want you to win, who know that you can win, and to be like, hey, you know what? That is a wildly audacious goal, but man, if anyone can do it, you can. And are you willing to work for it? And are you willing to go all in? And guess what? I will be your biggest fan. You got to find those people and you got to keep them by your side and put all the people who don't want you to win, who want you to play small, put them up in the nosebleed sections of your fan base. Like, they're not your fans. They're there that are going to boo you and, pray that you mess up. And you don't need those people in your life. So, careful who you're hanging around. If you have a goal and someone says they don't believe in you, get that person out of your life. I remember when I was on this mission to be who I came to be, to do what I'm doing now. And I actually had someone say to me, I don't think you know who you are. And honestly, that really fucking hurt. I was like, you don't think I know who I am? I was like, I don't think you know who I came to be. And there is no way I'm going to stay in this position and where I'm at doing something that I don't love and I'm not passionate about anymore. And that I've also excelled and kicked ass at. And I felt like I was ready to move on to the next thing. And this is when you have to believe in yourself, in your heart, and be who you came to be beyond reason. And next week on the podcast, I have a friend of mine who became a friend of mine. His name is DJ Rancan. His name's Ryan. And he's going to share his story about becoming a professional DJ and how he started young, loved it. And his parents were like, I need you to go to college. And then that didn't really work out. And he tried a few different things. And, he kept coming back to his passion and how that's worked in his life. And, it's pretty serendipitous. It's a totally amazing story that will inspire you beyond reason to go. So if you're listening now and you go another week and you don't do anything on your butterfly goal or your major league goal, listen next week and I promise you, you're going to be ready to take action. So if there's something that's been on your heart, something that you've wanted to do, and I don't care what it is, like, maybe it is the weight loss that you've always wanted to do. Commit to yourself, invest in yourself, hire a nutritional coach, get yourself a trainer, get your ass outside and move your body and be committed to it. Maybe decide to do something crazy like run a marathon. Like, hey, I'm going to sign up for a marathon. I don't care if it takes you a day to run it. I don't care if you walk it. Like, maybe that's what you need to do is set some outrageous goal that's going to push you on your way there. People who have heard my talk will come up to me and be like, every year I've wanted to, they'll have something like, I've had everyone from be like, I started brewing beer. I started making candles. Decided to go back and take piano lessons. I decided to sign up and run a marathon. I decided to go for this promotion in my company that I've been chicken shit to ask for. And I finally just said, I'm going to do it. I went back and got certified in something. I decided to become a nurse. One person was like, I always wanted a tomato garden and I never did it because it's always a pain in the ass. And I'm always busy and it's just so much work, but I decided to just do it. And I have to tell you, like, this summer I did it. And every time I picked a tomato, I was like, this is who I came to be. And it was just this like amazing moment of like, I can do whatever I want to do and whatever I put my mind to do. And your passions and purpose are not crazy. I speak at a lot of different companies and I speak actually at a lot of direct selling companies. And, some people try to make these direct sales professionals feel small and like they're not enough. And what they do is silly and stupid. And I know this because I actually, if you know me back in my days, I sold jewelry. I was with a company called Stella & Dot and I literally sold jewelry. I had a trunk show once a week where I went to someone's house and sold jewelry. We played dress up with jewelry and it was so fun. I absolutely loved it. I made an incredible living doing it. I met so many amazing people, but I remember like I overheard someone say once like, oh, she's got some little jewelry business. Like, I don't know. She's got something like that she does. And they made it sound so small. And I just wanted to be like, oh, my little multi-million-dollar jewelry business. Yeah, I do have this little business. But it was never about, obviously, if you know me, I love jewelry. I love fashion. I love makeup and all that. But it was about so much more than that. It was about giving me the opportunity to align my passion and purpose of being a mom and what I wanted to do within my household, but also being able to still have an amazing career. And so I tell these direct sales professionals like, hey, look, I don't care if you're selling lipstick. I don't care if you're selling, CBD or the latest and greatest workout or, stamps or whatever it is. Like, I don't care whether you do that or you work at NASA. Your passions and purpose are legitimate. And they matter and you matter. And your entire life's mission is to be who you came to be, to honor your authenticities, your passions, gifts, and talents, knowing that you're not going to be for everyone. And there's going to be people who downplay it, but who cares? They're not your people. You got to go all in on whatever it is that you came to do and who you came to be. And you didn't come to be like them anyway. And I always say like my authenticity and your opinion of my authenticity is none of my business. Like, I am who I am. And if you don't like me, then you're just not for me. Like, I don't care. Like, we do care, right? There's a sliver of us that cares, but imagine trying to get everyone in the world to like you. Like, you would be upside down and insane. So you got to find your people. That's the message of today is don't give up on your dreams. Don't give up on your aspirations because you got the whole freaking life in front of you and the world in front of you. And we need your passions. We need your dreams. We need you to ignite them and to go all in and to not play small and to be who you came to be. So thanks for listening to today's show. I believe in you beyond reason. I love you. It's why I started the show, is to ignite a movement of authenticity, of innovation, of creativity that comes from when we show up exactly who we are and who we came to be. Keep shining your light, live unapologetically authentic, and be who you came to be. I'll see you next week. Love you guys.